Hey again, Michael Sipe here of the Strategic Advisor Board and owner of Sipe Coaching and Consulting, where I help entrepreneurs find that work-life balance. All right, on today's episode of Empowered Leadership, we're going to be talking about what happens when emotions rule our decision-making process. Now, when I'm talking about emotions here, I'm talking about those really strong emotions, sort of the heat of the moment kinds of emotions. Now, when we think about the heat of the moment, it might be an absolute passion for something, an absolute joy, going after a fix, something that's really strong emotionally for us. It can also be obviously the negative kind where we're irritated, angry, frustrated, but it's kind of a welling up. It just kind of comes almost out of nowhere because that's the emotion that gets triggered. So anybody who studied organizational behavior and the human decision-making process, it's really important to understand how we are doing with our emotions. And I'm not saying we're to suppress emotions. There's a lot of ideas out there that talk about suppressing our emotions. I'm saying that's the furthest thing you actually want to do. But what I am saying is that we do need to be aware of what those emotions are. So specifically, when we're talking about the heat of the moment decisions, talking about the emotions that drive that heat of the moment. Now, let's talk about somebody who's had that kind of situation. But let's take Bob, for example. Bob's got an employee, Joe, and he's asked Joe to go and generate some revenue for him. And so that line of effort that Joe is doing is supposed to bring in a certain amount of money. And obviously, Joe has a fixed time to go and do that. Well, when time comes to shove, after that 4-week assignment that Joe was responsible for, he's basically got nothing to show for it. Well, Bob, not having checked in on how Joe is doing through that whole 4 weeks, comes to that 4-week decision moment and says, "Hey, how's it going?" And Joe responds, he's got nothing to show for that revenue. Well, Bob flips a lid and becomes upset that Joe hasn't done what he's supposed to do, right? So that irritation, that anger is what I'm talking about. Now, here's the part that most of us don't know about. The part that we don't know is that that habitual response gets imprinted in our brain. We have what's called in our brain neuroplasticity, where the neurons can fire and wire in various types of formats, networks, but there is some plasticity to it, meaning it can adapt. And so when we have those high-strung emotional moments, we imprint a neural net structure that's much more rigid. And so what we've done is we've set ourselves up for the future to have that very same response, even though it's not the same situation. So if in the future Joe has a project, what's Bob going to do? Regardless of whether Joe's completed it in a timely manner, he's going to jump to conclusions that Joe's not going to produce it on time. He's going to react adversely because he's wired his brain with that strong emotion that that's what's going on. Now, when you think about it from a leadership perspective, and specifically the energy levels, you think of our thoughts, plus our emotions, plus our actions. Really what we're trying to do here is recognize and become aware that we have these strong emotions. And so when we do that, we need to know that we need to think also logically and intuitively to make a more holistic choice about what decision we're going to make. And if we can recognize that in that heat of the moment, it's purely an emotional choice of a reaction in a certain way, then that's not the best time to make a decision. We need to put that on the back burner for then and come back to it when we're a little cooler about it or a little less amped up about it, because it might be a really good thing too, a really exciting thing too. All right, so that's the tip on how you need to be aware of your emotions during those heated moments for your decision making. All right, I hope you found this energy moment helpful for you and your leadership style. If you found it helpful, please click the like button down below. And if you have any questions or comments, please be sure to do so. And also, you can reach out to us if you want to learn more about bringing some energy leadership, a higher level of energy leadership to your organization. All right, thanks for watching.